It was 2009. I had 2 weeks left until summer break. Me and my friends decided to celebrate summer break with a sleepover. Over the next 2 weeks, I got everything ready at my mom's house. Candy decorations, games, the works. Then came the final day of school. The bell rang and I was free from this hellhole. I walked to my house and then knocked on my neighbor's door. I wanted his daughter to come to hang out with my other friends. Her dad said that she could, but she would need to be back by 1 a.m. It was a bit of a bummer since we wanted this to be a whole night sleepover. But it was better than nothing. I told her the time that it would start. After that, I started to set up everything. My mom would be working and my dad was gonna be buying some more snacks for the sleepover. Let's go. I'm done. After that, I texted all my friends in a group chat. I then walked to my neighbor's house, rang the doorbell, and waited. And waited. And waited. I rang it again and then my friend opened the door. I could tell her eyes were watery and I had a pretty good idea why. You see, my neighbor was a drinker, and he also used drugs, and I'm almost certain he abused his daughter. Beat her, raped her, everything. But I didn't know this at the time. And I didn't bring it up. I got her to the house and we watched some TV while we waited for the others to arrive. About 20 minutes later they arrived, and the sleepover began. We binge-watched shows, we ate tons of candy and sweets, we played Truth or Dare, and we played some scary games. We were just enjoying ourselves. Then my neighbor's daughter realized that she needed to be home by 1 a.m. and it was 3 a.m. The others said they were gonna catch some Z's and I told them that I would drop my neighbor's daughter off. So I walked her back to the house. We were talking about what we would do over the summer. I told her I would get a part-time job and she said I'll just try to get my life back together. Haha, I could tell that she was fake laughing. I decided to ask, why would you need to get your life back together? Is something wrong? She said nothing, with a smirk. Here's your house, see ya. I said. Bye, she said. I could see through the window that her dad was drinking. After this, I went back to my house and kept watching a TV show that I was addicted to at the time. After about 12 episodes I heard screams outside my window. I could see that someone was running away from my neighbor's house and headed towards mine. I screamed, "What the fuck, AH?" I dashed to the kitchen and I peeked out of the wall and saw that it was my neighbor's daughter and I could barely recognize her. There was a knife in her back and her hands were cut off. Her whole body was bloody and she was pouring blood from her mouth and her right eye. I gagged but still kept watching. She tried to knock on the door by banging her head on the door. I saw my neighbor running toward her with 2 bloody knives. I would let her in, but I was frozen cold in fear. So many things were running through my mind. You'll die if you open that door. Open it, don't be selfish. Just hide. He's gonna kill us. The poor girl saw that her dad was coming, and she ran to the road and waited for a car to run her over. She would prefer suicide over being killed by her father. That's heartbreaking. Her dad screamed and ran back to the house. Got to the car and started speeding and left the neighborhood. I cried myself to sleep that night, and after months I read an article explaining what happened that night. So when I dropped her off at her house, her dad had raped her mother and killed her. She went to her room and locked herself in. Her dad got the urge to kill again and told her to come out because he told her that I was there to give her something. As soon as she opened the door, he tried to strangle her. After that didn't work, he pushed her down the stairs. After that, he got a knife and stabbed her eye, her mouth, and her back. He then cut her hand and beat her with a belt. The daughter knew that the garage was open, so as soon as she got the chance she ran out there and went to my house. After she committed suicide, her dad speeded on the road and crashed into another vehicle, killing both people instantly. To this day I feel guilty for not opening the door for her. I could have saved someone's life and I failed. I wrote this to get this off my chest. Have a nice day. Because I know I won't. Something strange happened about 3 weeks back, and I've struggled to even put it together cohesively in my head. But I'm going to try, because I think that what happened at my sister's sleepover might actually be more widespread than I imagined. Looking back now, I don't even remember how many girls came. I think it was 10 or 12. All of them in the second grade and close to my sister Rachel.as. They got into their sleeping bags and told each other ghost stories. Me and my best friend Kurt had a devilish idea. We're going to scare these girls senseless, he said wickedly. I have to admit, it was for just cheap thrills. But I didn't see the harm. We got into my father's workshop and stole a few of his basic paint supplies to make Kurt look like a typical horror movie vampire. Then we went to the backyard and started to climb the tree outside of Rachel's window. Kurt was in place, ready to start making the usual boogeyman noises when he froze and squinted into the window. What the hell, he muttered as he tried to look in. Hey! What are you doing? Don't be a peeping Tom. I shouted up at him, trying to figure out why he was hesitating to start the scare. Then suddenly his eyes widened and he started to fumble backwards. I watched as his feet slipped from under him and he fell to the ground. It happened in slow motion. But the sound of his head hitting the bird fountain in our backyard is one that I will never forget. Jesus Christ. Kurt, are you okay? I screamed. I looked up, waiting to see if my sister or one of her friends would stare out and see this horrific accident. I tried to prop his head up and stop the bleeding. Then I reached into my pocket to call 911, but I hesitated. I know it's dumb, but my parents were already going to give me a tongue lashing for being stupid anyway. I didn't want the cops to find me for something like this, so instead I ran inside and used Kurt's phone instead. As dumb as that was, what I did next was even stupider. I went back out and after checking to make sure he was okay and not bleeding out, I decided to climb the tree and see whatever it was that had caused him to act so strangely. Slowly, I crawled up the branches and peered through the window to where my sister and her friends were sleeping, all except one. It's been so long now and I still remember that ungodly sight. One of the girls was standing there, crouching over the other girls with sharp talons extended from her fingers and fangs protruding from her mouth. Her skin was as pale as the moon and her eyes flowed a deep velvet red. I will never forget the way she slowly drained the life from one of the other girls. I could see the life force ebb its way out of her body and into this abomination. Then the girl looked straight at me. I nearly fell back like Kurt did. But instead I stared her down across the darkness. What would she do? Suddenly she raised her hand up. And the other girls began to awaken. They were all now sharing that same dark glow in their eyes. I scrambled to get out of there. I didn't even wait for paramedics to show up and help Kurt. I didn't want to be around if those vampires thought I was a threat. I've been running ever since. I even tried to check on Kurt the other day, make sure he was okay, and got the help he needed. That was a mistake. Hey bud, yeah, I'm fine. Didn't even need surgery, he said. That's great. I'm sorry I ran, but it was crazy what those girls were doing. Oh yeah, it wasn't that weird after all. Rachel showed me after the paramedics came. In fact, I think she wanted to show you too, he said in a weird voice. Something was off, bud. Where exactly are you now? Wait. Why? I asked. He was making me nervous. Was I panicking? Overreacting? We're going to find you. One way or another, his voice sounded just like one of the little girls. I hung up immediately. I know now I can't go home. I don't really know where I can go that might be safe. But I'm going to keep moving. And telling as many people as I can about what I saw. The town I live in is nice enough. It's quiet. A little quaint. My dream is to move to the city once I graduate from college. I want a life where things are busier. More exciting. More alive. I live at home with my parents and my twin sister. Both of my parents are underpaid teachers, so our upbringing has been relatively modest. We've never been spoiled. We've always been told to work hard for every dollar, and gratitude for everything we have has been instilled in us since childhood. My parents must have worked really hard to save money throughout these years, because the house that we've lived in since I was a teen is pretty darn huge. Our tiny little town in general is relatively prestigious. I went online to search up the prices of houses in our neighborhood and wow. So, I do my part to extract wisdom from my parents whenever possible. Clearly, they know a thing or two about how to win at life. Out of all of the things my parents ask of me and my sister, the rule they are the most stern about is, if you're going downstairs after midnight, you have to bring someone with you. Ever since we first moved to this house, they would remind us of this rule every chance they got. They'd randomly bring it up at the dinner table, or before we'd go off to school. Sometimes, if they heard footsteps in the hallway at night, one of them would get up from bed and walk with us to wherever in the house we were going. The strangest thing about it was that me and my sister never really had any reason to go downstairs at night anyways. Our rooms, the living room, the kitchen, and pretty much everything else we used was upstairs. Sure, downstairs had a games room and some stuff we maybe needed to pull out from storage from time to time, but overall, I couldn't really think of a scenario where we'd need to go downstairs after midnight. My sister and I would ask my parents about it sometimes. Why do we have this rule? What happens if we break it? They would usually deflect, change the subject, or say we'll tell you when you're older, dear. As I got older and older, the fact that my whole family slept upstairs, in a large 2-story house, mind you, became increasingly weird to me. I was curious about what exactly was going on. So, fresh off my 20th birthday, I decided to conjure up a situation where I'd absolutely need to head downstairs after 12 a.m. Mom, I left my laptop in the games room and I need to polish up a paper that I'm submitting tomorrow. Lame excuse, I know. She was skeptical and pushed back a little bit. Can't I get up early tomorrow and finish up the essay in the morning? Why did I leave this assignment until the last minute? I was able to assuage these questions pretty easily. I thought it was due 2 days from now. I thought my laptop was in my room. I'm a little bit stressed and I won't be able to sleep if I don't finish it, etc., etc. So she ultimately obliged. We made our way down the small staircase and arrived at the door leading to the downstairs area. Before my mother opened it, she turned to me. Okay. He's likely going to latch onto me. Make sure I don't open the door to the backyard, okay? Make sure I'm with you at all times. You can pull me if you need to. I thought she was kidding. She opened the door. Our downstairs area has another small living room, a small kitchen, and a hallway that leads to our games room and our storage area. I'd accidentally left my laptop in the games room, so as we entered, I immediately turned towards the hallway. I thought my mom would follow me. Instead, I saw her, just standing there. Shivering. Jittery. Her gaze was fixed on the window in the kitchen. It's a big window, with the blinds usually pulled up. The window was a peek into our large, mostly empty backyard. I looked at my mom confusedly, as she continued her uninterrupted stare. Slowly, she started walking to the door to our backyard. Mom. What are you? That's when I saw him. Pressed against the window from the outside. His face was obscured by the darkness, but I could see his eyes. Wide open. Wider than eyes should go. Otherworldly. He looked focused. Excited. My mom continued walking to the door. I grabbed her, as hard as I could, and pulled her away, back to the staircase leading upstairs. I closed the door behind us. It took my mom a moment to snap out of it. She spent another minute staring at the door to the downstairs area, meekly trying to open it and go back to where she was previously walking to. When she finally pulled herself together, what the fuck was that? Did you get your laptop, hun? What the fuck was that outside the window? Mom's reaction was weird. A mix of annoyance, concern, and fear. She finally responded, terrible things happen when we talk about him too much. As long as we go downstairs in pairs of 2, we're always okay. No one's let him in yet. And that was that. I continued asking her as we made our way upstairs, but she just flat out ignored me. At this point, I had no idea what to do. I wanted to tell my sister, who was generally super carefree, but part of me thought that it'd only freak the hell out of her and achieve nothing. I tried bugging my dad about it, but he also deflected. At most, sometimes he'd say something like, we just wanted to make sure we could give you and your sister a comfortable upbringing, and then walk away. What the fuck? It's been 2 years since me and my mom went downstairs together after midnight. Since then, we've continued to follow the rule, and we'd thankfully never run into any problems. I've tried to convince my parents that we should think about downsizing and moving somewhere else, but they always say stuff like, "That isn't how this works, dear, and as long as we play it safe after midnight, we'll be okay." That brings me to why I'm writing this today. My parents have been gone for the week, visiting family in another state. My sister left earlier this evening to go to a sleepover with her best friend. I'm home alone. For the first time in forever, I don't usually have my phone on me. It takes me a couple of hours, at least, to read and respond to text messages. I've always been lazy about it. I recently took a look at my phone to see a missed text message from my sister. "Hey, I might have accidentally left the downstairs door open. Just an FYI, please close it whenever you get a sec." She sent this text message 4 hours ago. I read it at 10 minutes past midnight. I'm writing this from the closet in my room. So far, I think I'm okay. Maybe she's misremembering and she kept the door shut. The only thing I'm worried about is that I'm starting to shiver a little bit. And I have this inexplicable urge to get out from my hiding spot so that he can find me.